ZEHAHA. What's up, y'all? One Piece One Life here, and guys, Oda is in his absolute bag. Back when the mural chapter came out, I didn't think it was possible for it to get much better than that. Then he dropped the emu demonification chapter, and I didn't think it could get much better than that. But this chapter, I still have 1150 over it, but oh, was it close? Because not only is Harold and Loki's flashback shaping up to be one of the best we've gotten, the reveal at the end of this chapter is game breaking. But before we get into breaking the game of chapter 1154, I need y'all to do something for me. Like the video, okay? Very important. Subscribe to this channel for more One Piece content just like this every week. And share it around with all your friends who love the series. You know we stay here. Let's get it going. Oh, make sure you subscribe to me and my boys over at CSY. Now the chapter title is I Can't Even Die, because wow does this chapter get dark. And I'm actually happy to say we may actually finally have something actually interesting going on in Yamato's cover story. Because we see her gang being taken to a special grave of some hero born in the West Blue. And I checked, we don't know who this is. So we may actually be getting a very interesting reveal soon. Now in this chapter, we do a lot of time jumps, so make sure you're keeping up. The chapter starts off 63 years ago, where we're getting a recap of Big Mom's backstory and how she came to be. Whereas young as she was able to one-shot kill Cascade Beard Joro. Cascade Beard just doesn't sound right. I know it's Fall Beard because it's supposed to be waterfall, but no. And the fact that we're getting Big Mom right here, it's flagging to me she just has to be making a return. She's too tied to the giant story. However, the tragedy of Big Mom wasn't the only bad thing that happened that year. We see that Elbaf was being ravaged by cold storms, being set ablaze in huge fires, and they couldn't get the resources they needed because they couldn't even fish. Whole time you have Queen Estrid, Loki's mom, who's just blaming everything on Loki and his curse. She's talking about, yeah, this is what the land gets because you didn't kill this baby immediately. What's wrong with you? Loki bursts into the room and is trying to go to his mother. That's his mom. But she's like, get this monster freak out of my sight immediately. We see that even internal struggles have increased because now we got villages going to war with each other over resources. Mind you, her whole plan about keeping Loki a secret did not work because the rumors about the princeling that was born and the accursed prince circulated very quickly. Such to the extent that you even had people trying to take it out on Hyruden just for being his half-brother. I don't know, if it was me, I'll be damned that another person's actions is what's causing me to die. But just as this guy is going to kill Hyruden, that's when Boss Man comes back. Papa Harold is back in town and he's not here to play. After conking that brother on the head, he says that word reached him while he was abroad about Loki's birth and everything that was happening on Elbaf. Luckily, because he was going abroad doing his whole peace program where he was trying to build relationships with all of these other islands, when the news came to him that Elbaf was going into famine, their allies came to help. With obviously the whole message that he's portraying is like, look, I used to think like you did in the past, that humans were just insignificant and we were like so much bigger and therefore so much stronger. But look at what the humans can do. As small as they are not small in willpower. Interesting that willpower is spoken about considering how much of a theme it is in One Piece. And just further reinforcing the human giant ties. So then we get a bit of a jump where we see Estrid's actual funeral. And we see that Queen Estrid had continued to slander Loki's name and say that everything is his fault, literally until her dying breath. And then we see Harold crying for her. I don't know why. I genuinely have no idea. Harold, you know that she's a horrible person. She wasn't even your love for real. But even as other people were like, oh, obviously she died because it's part of Loki's curse, Harold didn't care about that. He was just proud that Loki was his son as well. So then we're told what actually happened with his eyes, which is that it's just some sort of born condition. And one of the guards says, yeah, he could see, but... And by this point, we already have the bandages over his eyes. And as we'll see later in the chapter, he can still see. It's just that the bandages were covered because, well, Estrid. And Harold, oh my goodness. Harold is trying his best. He's like, come on, smile for me. Well, I guess it makes sense. You did lose your mother. Not even realizing, as we're told, that Loki had given up on love itself. I'm not gonna lie, being that young and giving up on love because your mother never loved you, that gotta hurt. So then we see Elbaf starting to rebuild, where we have Harold actually making plans to, increase trade within the villages themselves. And then he would continue to venture off across the seas and, just continue to make more friends and allies. And when he would go, he appointed Estrid's brother to be Loki's ward. And I'm not gonna lie, that has to be the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Oh yeah, you know the vengeful, spiteful queen? The person who continued to denounce her baby as a monster until her literal dying breath? Yeah, let's take her brother, who believes that that baby was the problem, and put him in full charge of him. I'm not gonna lie, Harold, you're a good king, but you're kinda moving like Don Quixote homing right now. Just so naive. Meanwhile, we cut to the realm of the dead, where we actually see that Ida and Hiruden have opened up a tavern. Interestingly, this is the tavern that we saw Mato working at when Shanks had first landed on Elbaf. The fact that it's Ida's tavern, but Mato's here now, unfortunately means that something tragic is about to happen to Ida. We then time jump to 56 years later. Harold is having a conversation with Lord Ja, and Ja is like, "So, Harold, you were at the recent revelry, weren't you?" Harold says that he was because one of his friends, who was an invited king, smuggled him in as a guard. And then he says if that murder hadn't happened, it might have been exposed. Of course, at first, everybody's like, what murder are we talking about? Don't worry, you'll see. Lord Ja is just like, pish posh with all of that. Have you heard of the Gale Ra Warhammer Company? And this is funny because it's obviously supposed to be a spoof on Gali La, but apparently they were these giant shipwrights of legend that went around carrying warhammers. Honestly, from the way that they're talking about, Gali La is probably the spin on them. Lord Ja is just like, nope, they definitely existed. They were traveling all around, but then the final letter that I got from them said that they were captured. Ja's like, meanwhile, I've heard that there's a frozen giant army being kept somewhere, with basically all of it coming together to be like, listen, I understand what you're trying to do, but the world government, I don't know that we can trust him. Interesting to note though, when he was talking about the frozen army, it reminded me of Oars. The reason being that Oars and the other continent pullers, I had remembered something about ice being related to one of their stories. And indeed, as I went back to check, that's where Moria found him. He said that Oars was being frozen under the ice continent. So it makes you wonder if that ice continent itself is even natural then. Then in the castle, you have the ward who's just like, Loki, you killed my sister. Let's see what horrible things I can do to you today. And we just see cuts of Loki getting older. And as he gets older, more and more cruel things happen. They say that the horse of fortune that his mom brought in died, and then that the ward's body was found dead in the underworld, with a younger Loki just smirking, obviously implying that he... We then jump to 48 years ago.
Loki was biologically 15, but developmentally 5.
Harold is doing another one of his "I'm here to prophesize how we're all supposed to be together" speeches. But his dream is for giants to be accepted everywhere, which is very reminiscent of the Fishman too. And then an alarm blares in one of the villages as we see that Loki, alongside a bunch of the underworld animals, have come to just ravage the place. So it turns out he really was kind of doing evil stuff back then. But you gotta keep in mind that it is all because of the fact that nobody loved him and they always were turning on him, always saying bad things about him. I'm not gonna lie, if I had a backstory like that, I would be crashing out too. We see an interaction between Hiruden and Loki where it's explained exactly how they both feel about each other. Hiruden is like, Dad did so much to try and usher in this era of peace. I'm not gonna just let you. And Loki just cuts him off, being like, hey, whoa. Don't dare call my father dad. I won't accept that. You're tainted blood, you're weak, you're small, get out of my face. And as he slams his bludgeon into Hiruden's face, we see Gerd, Goldberg, and Stanson as kids also just running up and being like, Hiruden, are you okay? It's funny, the latest SBS literally came out last week and we saw what the New Giant Warrior pirates looked like as kids. And now we're getting them here as kids. Obviously, it's not a coincidence. And yeah, Loki's just like, haha, you got tainted blood, you can't do anything to me because I'm the real prince. And it's explained, no matter how much Loki would ravage, no matter how much Loki spread fear, destruction, worry, nothing he could do could fill the hole in his heart. He sees a mother and a child like scared and the mother actually coddling her child. He just breaks down. And then we see Loki flinging himself, jumping from the sun layer into the underworld, trying to off himself. And as he survives, basically perfectly fine, he's just crying, bawling, just like, I can't even die. What do I do from here? And this is what I mean when I say it gets dark, because it's like, as much as he's doing all of that crazy stuff upstairs, you know that he's just acting out because of the way that people are treating him. And he's literally like, me dying would be better than the life I'm currently living. But then this is where things get rambunctious, because then suddenly we have 4 individuals landing on Elbaf. What's the deal with Elbaf? I thought a bunch of crazy warriors were supposed to be here. And as we see them, we see that one of them is Golden Lion Shiki. Another one of them is Edward Newgate, Whitebeard. Shiki's just like, damn, this kid's got a devil face. Whitebeard's just like, why the hell are you crying, kid? What's wrong? Then there's a woman who's a part of their group who doesn't say anything, but the person leading all of them is the man of the hour, perhaps One Piece's lurking legend himself, the man who would go on to inspire Loki. And we're told that this is the person that Harold had seen 8 years prior at the Reverie. This person had single-handedly killed a Navy admiral and escaped, which earned him a massive bounty and the government's ire. This man being none other than Rox D. Zebek, the future captain of the Rox crew and the father of Emperor Blackbeard. Y'all, What? We got the reveal of Rox in Loki's backstory? Nah, I'm not gonna lie, this has to be peak cinema, because what's going on here? We actually see Rox himself. We see his hair. We see his appearance. He looks dope, by the way. We even see his face. His face is literally Blackbeard's face. It's so insane that this theory that's been perforating the community ever since we learned of that Blackbeard called his ship the Saber of Zebek. To think that it's real? To think that it's finally confirmed? So fair enough, to anybody who said that he was indeed Blackbeard's dad, clap for yourself. There's just too much here. Genuinely, there's so much to talk about with Rox being here and like finally just appearing that I think I'm going to make it its own video. Next week's vid is definitely going to be a breakdown of everything we know about Rox using this information. So definitely subscribe to the channel in order to not miss that, because this is going to be a big one. It's also not lost on me that we're getting a lot of Rox material in Loki's flashback, how that parallels to getting a lot of Roger material in Odin's flashback. All I can say is Kuma's is still the best in terms of like storytelling, but hype? Nah, that's gotta be this one right here. That is the end of the review, but I want to know what y'all thought about this chapter genuinely, because in my heart of hearts, I want to call this one a 10 out of 10. There was a bit of weaker parts to it in the beginning, which is why I'm giving it a 9, but this Rox thing in and of itself is just too massive. And before we go, y'all know what to do. Like it, subscribe, and share it around with all your friends who love the series. That's all from me. I'll catch you on the Rox video. Better be there. And always remember, one piece, one life. Oh my god. Oh my god.